Now, before this video starts, I will go ahead and warn y'all, I was talking pretty fast, so I do apologize if you guys can't interpret me in certain parts, but I was trying to make this video as short and informative as possible. This video will be a shorter but informative version of many other videos you see talking about the K20 engines that are either way too long or contain a bunch of useless information that you won't need when choosing one of these to either do a swap with or find in a Honda you're looking to buy. Now, I understand that attention spans are decreasing at a rapid rate and decided to shorten all the versions of the best Honda motor to date. These engines will be placed in 5 different categories, known as the K20A, K20C, K20Z, K24A, and K24Z. And yes, these will be timestamped. These are USDM for the most part, and many of them from different variations are very similar. Now, the list is massive, but hang in there, and if I've forgotten any important variation, please let me know in the comments. Alrighty, the good old, literally, K20A, with production starting in 2002 and the 2 variations of it originating in the 5th gen Integra / RSX, which are the K20A2 and K20A3. Now, the A3 was the economy version and the A2 was a performance version with higher compression ratios, 11.5 pistons, smaller crank pulley, and VTEC on the intake and exhaust valves. The K20A2 came with a whole 200 horsepower and 8,000 RPM redline, while the A3 only came with 160 horsepower and 6,700 RPM redline without true VTEC. Now on to the younger brother, the K20Z. This one has 5 variations, but one is an eco engine and the other 4 are performance. The Z2 is the eco engine, very similar to the K20A3, with identical compression, power, and redline. But the K20Z2 was using the Accord, Civic, and CSX from 2006 to 2011. Now the K20Z1, Z3, Z4, and Z5 are all very similar with an oddly close range of power figures and identical compression over a 6-year span. Starting in 2005 to 2006 is the first and most powerful variation with 210 horsepower, the K20Z1. Now you're about to discover why this video won't be that long, because Honda is really good at making engines that hardly need revisions. Few changes were made from the K20A2 that the K20Z is based off of, and the power figure differences are literally due to different intake and exhaust setups basically. No, I'm serious, that's it. But the K20Z1 got a better cam, better intake, slightly larger exhaust, and a new final drive from 4.74 from 4.38, and they called it a day. Now the Z3 has balanced shafts on its oil pump compared to the Z1. The Z4 has a lower VTEC crossover compared to the Z3, and the Z5 was actually a Civic Si motor from the 2007-2010 Civic Si, compared to the Z4 being a Type R motor, hence the slight power difference. Now onto the K20C, being the newest model starting in 2015, used up until today, also producing the highest horsepower number stock from any K series with the help of turbos. Now the variations are C1, C3 through C6, and C8. The C1 and C8 are identical, both being Type R / Type S engines, but have different mounting points, which is the only difference for the name. The C3 was only made in China, so it's kind of out of the conversation, but it is an economy engine. The C4 in the 10th gen Accord is like a baby C1 Type R engine, and the power difference being in boost and rev range. The C1 produces 22.8 PSI with a 7,000 RPM redline, and the C4 produces 20.8 PSI with a 6,800 RPM redline. The C5 is another China motor, so it's kind of irrelevant, but another economy motor. And the C6 was used in the 2021 TLX motor, which is nearly identical to the C4 in the 2019 Plus RDX. Now comparing the K20C to the K20Z, it came with a lighter crankshaft and pistons, 10.8:1 compression ratio, and a new cylinder head optimized with combustion chambers, and of course, VTEC. Now moving on to the K24A. This is the long part. It has too many variations to be bothered with, fam. So we'll discuss the K24A1, A2, A3, A4, and A8. Now, the K24A1, A4, and A8 are all economy engines very close to the K20A3 as they're very similar in age. The K24A3 is a Euro market engine, but they make more power than its USDM counterpart, the K24A, and it came with an RBB manifold. Now, the difference between the K24A variation to the K20A2 is derived from is its displacement from 2 liters to 2.4 and different compression ratios, with K24 having a 10.5 to 1, which is allegedly better for boost. Just not high pressures of it. Now, the changes made between the two are really just displacement, so if you have to choose between one, you'd either be choosing the K20A2 for higher horsepower if boosting with higher numbers, or a K24A for more torque, which can handle boost well, just not as high as the K20A2 can. Now, lastly, we move on to the K24Z, which can usually be the more affordable option to the K24A, but doesn't have as strong as a head for building power and isn't better than the K24A, and hence why it's cheaper. The K24Z has variations 1 through 7, with 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 being the economy motors, and the K24Z3 and Z7 being the performance variants. Now, these also vary over a wide spectrum of power figures, but as per usual, that is due to different applications of vehicles they have put in that have different intake and exhaust setups. The K24Z compared to the K24A has a 1-stage RTB manifold compared to a 2-stage intake and a different exhaust system to meet emission standards. The K24Z is essentially the slightly worse K24A due to having to meet stricter emissions regulations and couldn't be as great, which are really the only differences between the two, which kind of make the K24Z like an economy and performance variation of the K24A combined. Kinda. Now, I will say that was a lot, and if there was any major information I missed, I do apologize, as for some engines, the information is kind of scarce. I hope this video was informative enough, and I will say it was my first in-detail video about something, specifically engines. I really did hope y'all enjoyed this, and make sure to subscribe if you thought it was informative enough. Peace out.